How we going, folks? Welcome back to the Nightmare Cabin. We are doing a retrospective today. It's going to be a short one, but it is a case of quality over quantity. So today we are talking about Watchtower. Now, a band I've been wanting to cover for a long time, and because the catalogue is so short, I've always gone, oh, I can just breeze through that one, and then just never got round to it. So yeah, I've had a couple of things that have been delayed or I've cancelled and so on and so forth. So I haven't done a video in a while. Again, with a busy work schedule. So I thought I'd knock this one out today. And yeah, let's talk about Watchtower, because this band they're a bit of a cult band, but they are a hidden gem, and I think they're very important in the formation of metal, but they don't quite get the credit they're due. But I think that's because they've been just so sporadic, and they're always starting and stopping, and all the rest of it. So yeah, and another thing that turned me onto Watchtower, obviously Death being my favourite band or favourite extreme band. Your Maidens and your Sabbaths and so on, like full on death metal. The more extreme side of metal. Death are my favourite band, and I got turned on to Watchtower because people would bring up Watchtower in terms of Chuck Schuldina's influence, and I remember seeing I can't remember quite what it was actually, but it was an interview with the singer of Watchtower, Jason McMaster, and he was saying about how he was friends with Chuck, and Chuck told him what a big influence Watchtower were, and so I just checked out the band from there really, and they've been in the collection ever since, and yeah, these two albums and an EP are a treat. They really are. They really are. So yeah, what do Watchtower sound like? Well, if you take the early first, say second, third, and fourth album of Rush, so early 70s Rush, and then you take a band like Death and everything that's gone on off of the back of Death, with like bands like Obscura or maybe Cynic, and then sort of around the time, Watchtower are the bridge between the two, say between Rush and Death, and that's Rush and Death, not Rush and Death. But and I guess Voivod is in there as well, but there's something special about Watchtower. So the band formed in 1980. When was it? 85, I think it was. This is when this first album came out. The band first of 1982, and as usual, you got a couple of demos and whatnot. And then in 1985 is when they released this absolute masterpiece, energetic disassembly, and they've just got such a awesome sound. But the more you listen to these albums, the more it's just bonkers to begin with, and it's just crazy. But the more you listen to it, the more it sort of decodes itself and makes more sense. Vektor are another band that Watchtower a big influence on, and whatever happened to them? But I'm trying to think of other bands now. But anything that's a bit sci-fi and a bit technical thrash metal, that's a bit out there and a bit spacey and a bit weird, yeah, Watchtower is your band. But so this was released in 1985. You've got Jason McMaster on vocals, Billy White on guitar, Doug Kaser on bass, and Rick Kolaluka on drums. Now, Doug and Rick on bass and drums are the two most constant members. Jason's going to leave and come back and leave and come back again. But yeah, think Rush, Death, Vektor, Voivod, and all in between. And yeah, this is just think early Rush on cocaine. There you go. Think Geddy Lee getting absolutely like just, and then jumping up and singing in a thrash metal band is the best way. But yeah, so you've got, was it 8 tracks on this? I think it's 8 tracks, and it's not even 40 minutes long. It just blazes by. 37 minutes. So the album opens with Violent Change, and again, this song just speaks for itself. It's just absolute bonkers, but it's nice and thrashy in a real clever way. Then it kicks into Asylum. That opening riff. Now we're talking about Death. You see where Death get their influence, especially from sort of Human onwards. It was funny because Fenriz from Dark Throne had probably the most unique take on Death, because he didn't like them. But he said he liked Scream Bloody Gore and he liked Sound of Perseverance. And he said Scream Bloody Gore he liked because it was his own thing. He said, but then Chuck discovered Watchtower and then just kept trying to be Watchtower and failing. And he liked Sound of Perseverance because on that album he finally done it. And, you know, I'm not sure. Well, I don't agree with that at all because I love everything Death did. But, okay. I see his logic. I see where he's coming from. And it is a unique take. And it's reasonable enough, I suppose. He was, you know, I didn't like them because they were trying to rip off this band. But I did like them in the end because they did. I think which Watchtower as well, they sound... If he did achieve it on like trying to emulate Watchtower, he did it more on Control Denied than he did with Death. But anyway, but yeah, you can hear that Death influence on Death on the opening riff of Asylum. But yeah, it's a great song as well. Tyrants in Distress. It's really clear bass as well, and again, you can hear the sort of influence that would have had on a bass player like Steve DiGiorgio, who will play like a lead high bass in a death metal or thrash metal setting. It starts off with this like real sort of this crazy rhythm, and it goes into this moody section with this crazy solo, like a march rhythm, you know. And the title track, Energetic Disassembly, is just fantastic, awesome song. It's just mental, and the drums on this is just crazy. Any drummer, you need to listen to that and just practice along to it and take note, because it's crazy. Excuse me. Argonine Forest is a nice melodic riff during the chorus of that. On what you can call it a chorus, if you can. But is it on this one that I was talking about? No, that's the next. No, that's the next track. Yes, sorry. Right. I wanted to say something, but that's the next album. Where are we? Sumerian Shadows. It's about as close to accessible as it gets with this one. But it's cool. It's melodic. It's dark and sort of atmospheric. It brings to mind like a sort of like dystopian future comic books, like Judge Dredd or something like that. Like a great soundtrack to that. Like if you're into 2000 AD or something along those lines, something set in the future in like a comic book. If you're reading something like that, this is a great soundtrack to it, especially the song Sumerian Shadows. And Meltdown, it's got this awesome sort of that breakout one in chorus as well. But yeah, it's just a fantastic album. It's just got so much going on in it. It's just loopy and crazy for all the right reasons. And what about it as well is that it's just got this amazing, just crazy. Again, it's one of those albums that it's all over the place, but it's so tight. But just one note, one skip beat, the whole thing just falls apart, and it's brilliant for it. But it's melodic when it needs to be as well, and you know, it's in a lot of ways this has more depth than most prog bands that come out today. So yeah, the band put that out, and then off the back of Tom Gabriel Fisher from Celtic Frost, he gives this album to the head of Noise Records. In this time as well, the band get Jason McMaster leaves on vocals, and also Bill White. So the band get a new lineup, gets signed to Noise Records, and eventually put out Control and Resistance. And yeah, so on this album we've got a new singer and a new guitarist. And considering how crazy this album is, and two new members as distinctive as a singer and a guitarist, the transition's quite smooth. The new guitarist, the new singer is Alan Taccio, I think that is. He was the singer in Hades, and the new guitarist is Ron Jarzombek, who was in S.A. Slayer, but has then gone on to be in Blotted Science with Alex Webster from Cannibal Corpse. You know, that widdly prog instrumental album that you were all banging on about when it came out, but none of you have listened to it since. Yeah, that one. But yeah, this is the masterpiece. This is 43 minutes, 8 tracks, and yeah, the two new members seemingly you would think it was the same lineup basically. Alan sounds a bit like Jason, but he's got his own thing going on. But in interviews he has expressed that he was always having to push himself to sing high to fit with the music in general, and especially with singing Jason's songs. But yeah, Instruments of Random Murder, the opening track, again, exactly what you'd expect, bonkers. But again, it's technical, it's multi-layered, it's got, you know, all these different textures, and it all just ties together nicely to make this like coherent song that makes sense the more you listen to it. What song is it? Oh, sorry, yeah, Instruments. Yeah, just as crazy and as bonkers as you'd expect, with a really good solo on the opening track as well. Mad Day in Kiev, that's as another bit when it kicks in. You know, that reminds me of Death as well, something that off of the what was the fifth album with Gene Oglen on? Before Symbolic. Oh, for God's sake. Individual Thought Patterns. Yeah, it sounds like that could easily have fit on there. The Fall of Reason was the song I wanted to talk to you about. Now that has this sort of clean bass solo, you know, in the middle of it, and it goes nice and melodic, and then builds up into this really awesome guitar solo, and that is very reminiscent of Rush, like in their 70s proggy peak, really. Maybe something a bit later, like something off of Hemispheres or something like that. But and the title track as well, Control and Resistance. I think the Fall of Reason and Control and Resistance, they're in the middle of the album. It's kind of like the peak of the album. But if you'd have bought it on the LP, Fall of Reason would have closed side A, and then Control and Resistance would have opened side B. So I don't know if it's more of a climax and then a beginning, but listening to it on a CD, the two songs together are kind of like the peak of the album. But it's just phenomenal stuff. It's just great. It's just great. And I think it is just like, it is the template of a technical sort of progressive thrash album that everyone should be measuring up to today. Life Cycles is cool. It's got nice melodic sections on that one as well. Nice and atmospheric. And Dangerous Toys as well. Another fantastic song. Yeah, I mean, you've got here just two near perfect albums that just complement each other perfectly. And then we've got an EP after that, which was released quite recently. Well, in metal terms anyway, but we're going to get to that in a minute. Yeah, so the band, you know, they toured with Coroner. They did a lot of heavy promotion for this, and then they kind of hit a wall where, and I've got a section of the book here. Damn the Machine, the story of Noise Records. And what's the best place to... Yeah, so I'll read this here. So the band initially slated to record with... Oh, right. I completely missed this. They had trouble recording this album because basically the original producer basically liked to drink and didn't quite know what he was doing with the band. But another producer stepped in, Tom Stockinger. But I guess we've kind of passed all that now. But right, so the band are gearing up for their third album, and again, yeah, the band's hit some complications that they've never really recovered from. Yeah, so the songs weren't coming together. We couldn't write a lot of in general because of Ron's fingers. So what happens? Ron had a injury, or he couldn't use his hand anymore, and so yeah, the songs weren't coming together because of Doug's fingers. Doug had some riffs, but we've got a whole lecture about continuing to sing. Oh yeah, because the second guy on Hades, he was struggling to keep up with the vocals as well. Yeah, it's just they had this album in mind, but they just never really, they could never get it together, basically. But the album was called Mathematics, and I'm just trying to think with what was it that happened to him. I can't remember if he had an injury or, but basically the guitarist injured his hand, and they couldn't. It kind of put a thing on their schedule, and then they just never really caught up again. Then with Alan leaving the band and going back to Hades, and then yeah, this is when it comes into a thing of the band just always sort of reformed, split up, or got back together, went on a hiatus. So Jason comes back into the band, and then I'll read this bit here. So the songs weren't coming together, and we couldn't write a lot in general because of Ron's fingers. Doug had some riffs, and then I got a whole lecture about continuing to sing high, which definitely turned me off. Like, guys, really? You were lying to me this whole last year. We didn't have a lot of songs, so I can't say we did 5 songs where I had to sing high on every song. We really had a series of riffs that we were trying to make songs out of. They weren't going into my approach for the whole thing, vocals, and it was a turn off for me as a singer. I really wanted to grow my range and feel more rounded as a singer. That being the case, plus Ron getting his surgery, led me to think I can't really do this, and basically the band was stuck in limbo. So Tecchio would leave Watchtower to rejoin Hades later that year, and in spite of that, remaining 3 members of the band tried to pull together new songs, only to find themselves at odds over the direction. Frustrated with lack of progress and surprisingly healed from his injury, Jazombek formed an instrumental project, Spastic Inc., with his brother Bobby in the mid-90s, while the band was able to pull together the music that would make up Mathematics. They've still been unable to finish it, even after an aborted reunion attempt with Tecchio in 2010. So there's that. But the band did put out Concepts of Maths Book 1, and this was in 2016, I believe. But there was a bit of trouble. Basically, the band have attempted to record their third album 3 times, and in 2016 we basically got an EP. So Jason came back on vocals for about 2010, I believe it was. Let me just quickly look it up. It was... So this gets complicated. So Jason McMaster comes back on vocals from 1999 to 2009, leaves, and then Alan comes back, and that's where we've got the EP. But then Alan leaves, and then Jason is now back in the band today. So yeah, it gets complicated. So I ended up finding this Wikipedia article on Book of Maths, and well, yeah. So as far back as by early 2001, reports of a third Watchtower album in the works titled Mathematics had surfaced. In August of that year, yeah, basically the band kind of painted themselves into a corner announcing that they had an album in the works, but they kind of put a lot of pressure on themselves because they were always trying to get in pressured, well, just being asked by fans going, what's going on in this album? But Jason would go on to sing in Dangerous Toys. He's in a really cool band at the moment. I forget their name now. Intruder? No. Igniter, sorry. He's done about 6 albums with them, and they're pretty awesome. But yeah, he was also in Dangerous Toys from the end of the 80s onwards. And yeah, the band, basically, they just ended up getting tied up in different projects. And it was just always a pain to, you know, tie each other down to record something. So, yeah, it gets complicated. And eventually they put out this EP. But they released the first 4 songs like a single at a time, and then eventually put this out on a CD with all the 4 individual singles together, with one new song, the last track, Mathematical Calculus. But it's a fantastic EP. It opens with an instrumental, which is, you know, just awesome. Again, it's weird and complex, is what you would think. It's very virtuoso in the guitar solo, but it's melodic when it needs to be. Then you get a song like Technology in Action, which is catchy, quite accessible. And I mean, the first 2 minutes, you know, it's just, well, the first 2 minutes are about as accessible and catchy as it gets, and then it just goes as bonkers as you'd expect Watchtower to get. But Size of Matter is a really cool riff at the beginning. Very Queensryche-esque, sort of like this voiceover, which reminded me a lot of Queensryche. And then you get Mathematica Calculus is like the near 10-minute epic at the end. And yeah, look, this holds its own against like your Dream Theaters and Fate's Warnings of the world. And yeah, I mean, I think this is the closest we're going to get to Mathematics being completed. Mathematics has kind of become the Chinese democracy of progressive thrash. But yeah, it's well worth getting. And if you like these first 2 albums, but this has slipped you by, definitely get it. So this is the same lineup as Control and Resistance, but the singer of Energetic Disassembly is now back in the band with the, what's it called, Control and Resistance lineup. So basically you got the guitarist from this album, singer from this album is the current lineup now. Best of both worlds in a way. But it's hard to, so which one is the best one to get? This is the thing, because you've only got 2 albums. Well, you need both. What's the best one? It's hard. I would say this is probably the better one to start with, but you need this. And why it's hard to argue which one's better, because it's kind of like asking what's better, Peace Sells But Who's Buying or Rust in Peace. Well, Rust in Peace is better because it's more sort of slickly produced, and it's quite, you know, it's more together and clinical, and sort of, you know, it's just this perfect album. While Rust in Peace is sort of, it's perfect in its own chaotic, raw, kind of flawed, but in a perfect way. And it's kind of the same with these 2. It's kind of like, imagine if Megadeth found Rust in Peace and Peace Sells are the only 2 albums they put out. Like, this is the more chaotic, raw, just, yeah, raw chaotic one, while this is more of a clean, smoothed over one. But you need both. So yeah, possibly start with this one, but both are just as essential. They suit each other perfectly, It's a perfect 1-2 punch, but it's definitely worth getting the EP as well if you've missed out on that as well. And apparently the band, there's a video on YouTube of I watched a concert they did, a gig in 2024, which was really good. With Jason back on vocals. They pretty much do, well, they do all of this album, and they do about half of this album as well. So it's a pretty well balanced set. And I've just heard through the grapevine that Energetic Disassembly is about to get reissued as a double disc, with all the extras and bells and whistles. So I'll be definitely looking out for that, and I'll review it when it comes out. There is a live video, but apparently it came out in 2000, but it's a gig from 1985 apparently, and they were just selling it at the gigs. I've had a look. I can't find it on YouTube anywhere. But there's also a compilation of demos, demonstrations in chaos. I found it, and in order to buy it, I would have to have decided which one of my children I'd want to sell in order to afford it. So I'm leaving that for now. I'm hoping that will be the bonus disc of this, but I'll see what they pull out the bag. But yeah, definitely check out Watchtower, especially if you're a Death fan or if you're a Vektor fan, Voivod fan. Yeah, like I say, these two albums are a treat. Definitely go out and get it. It's complex, it's technical, it's thrashy, it's chaotic, but melodic and spacey and beautiful when it needs to be also. So perfect meld of all sorts of influences and sounds. And yeah, just a crazy band. You owe it to yourself to check them out. So yeah, Watchtower. Right, that's it for now, folks. I'll see you soon. Take care.